So at Adlibris, you have 13 million offerings. 13 million. How is the operations?
Normally an e-commerce player would have 30 to 50,000 SKUs, and that goes for more or less all the book chains online. We offer 13 million different titles. Having 13 million SKUs is the beauty, but it's also the kind of, very, very challenging. As a leader on any level, you need to kind of, package what you are communicating, because it is quite difficult to understand the message. It's terrible to be in a crisis, but what a crisis gives you the opportunity to do is to make quite rapid and more comprehensive changes than you would have otherwise have done. When it comes to investments, we are making significant investments in an automated warehouse solution.
And what do you think makes a successful CEO?
Allow mistakes, but don't allow the same mistake twice. And of course, you need to be more successful than making mistakes.
Here's Paula Macaggi, and this is episode 8 of my show. Welcome to OFFBounds. When I was in New York last month for a year and a half, I went on a retail safari and met Jonas Karlen. While we were exploring some stores in Soho, that's when he told me he's the CEO of Adlibris, the largest online bookstore in the Nordics. Adlibris was founded in 1997, just a little bit after Amazon, and has established itself as a pure player in the market. I even did a small research and asked a few locals during my time in Sweden where they usually buy their books. No one said anything else but Adlibris. In my interview with Jonas, we talk about the importance of reading, the success of Adlibris, the beauty and the challenges of having 13 million SKUs. Why a pure player now has stores, in Jonas' view on leadership and team building. But before we go to the interview, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to the show so you don't miss any episode, either on YouTube or any podcast provider. I promise I'll keep working super hard to bring you the best content.
Jonas, thank you so much for coming to this interview. It's a pleasure to be in Stockholm with you. I remember when we met in New York, we were walking around some stores and you told me that about Adlibris, and I could not wait until I could talk about it at OFFBounds. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
So tell me, you have gone through industries. How did you end up in e-commerce?
So basically what I love is sales and consumers, customers. So I've always been in B2C, and what I love about that is, the moment when you get a customer to really like what you're selling, and then you agree on a sales price, and then you commit to a deal. I think that is fantastic. So that combined with analytics has brought me into the area of e-commerce. Through a quiet, winding way, you might say, starting off in energy for quite some years, almost 10 years, where I worked with consumer sales, and then moving into media, Modern Times Group, owning Viaplay and Viasat at that point in time. Moving on to food bag company, the one that founded food bags in the Nordics and also worldwide, and then moving into Adlibris to sell books.
Very good. Do you read?
I read quite a lot, yes.
So it was like, okay, let me sell to the consumer something that I do. It was that change. So how was Adlibris when you joined?
So I joined Adlibris 4 years ago, and at that point in time, Adlibris was founded in 1997, so it's been around for quite some while.
Pretty much when e-commerce started.
Yeah, you can basically say that. So
I can start it all together.
Yeah, so combined with a few other companies, I think Adlibris was the e-commerce pioneer in the Nordics, but also I think in Europe. And Adlibris was on a pretty steady growth trajectory for some 15 years, a bit more. And then, with a quite large customer base, there was this analysis that Adlibris needs to do more, needs to do more product categories, need really to evolve into something else. There was nothing wrong with that insight, because a lot of product categories were moving into e-commerce, and for Adlibris to think that we should be able to take part of that, I think that insight was correct.
You already had the customers, right?
Exactly, yeah. But then there is and was a kind of a great disconnect between that insight and the operational capabilities to be able to offer anything else than books, because it's a huge difference to do books online compared to do interior design online, in everything from...
In terms of storage, you mean?
Storage and the logistics and how you send the packages and how you sell. So I think there was this kind of belief that we could use the tech platform we had and the logistics we had, and that would be a competitive advantage, but it was definitely not. It was rather a competitive disadvantage where nothing actually worked. So I think that is a lesson learned when a great insight meets operational reality, and kind of that it collapses, and that is what happened.
And that's when I joined.
Yes.
Okay, so you joined to fix it.
So I joined to fix it. The task was very outspoken, that you need to set us on the right course again. You need to look into the business model. We need to see what we should keep and what we should let go or sell off, to be able to show that we could have a profitable and sound business again. Fix the operations, fix everything, and once we have done that, then we can look into where might we find new growth.
And you had experience already in reviewing operations?
Yeah, so
operations guy.
So I love that. I love, to combine the strategy and the operations. I think that is where the handicraft comes in, and not only looking at growth, but also look at your, the stuff that you have. How can we actually make that work better? How can we give the consumers what they want, and how can we do that in an efficient way? So that combination to me was really compelling when I was contacted for the Adlibris CEO role.
So that's why you said yes, coming.
Yes, definitely, yeah.
And it's funny because you joined at the end of 2019. I don't think we were expecting to have a 2020 the way we had, but well, it's books, it's online. I guess that was a good thing.
Yeah, of course, COVID was, was such a, what can I say? It was, from a human perspective, it was terrible in all means. For an e-commerce player, especially in books, of course it meant that we saw immediate growth, because the consumers, they had much less to do. They needed to stay at home, and then they read more, and they needed to find, board games and puzzles and whatever for their kids and their families.
And that was something you already offered?
Yes, so we're actually selling books, but also stuff that is connected with books, where you as a consumer would say that they should have some puzzles, board games, and also yarn we have, which is a bit odd, but that has been quite successful. So of course I joined in November 19, and then the pandemic hit us in March 2020. So that was a huge shift from, looking into how should we fix the business, and then turning the eyes into how should we make our staff secure. That was of course number one, what is happening in the surrounding world, and then also being able to take care of the increased volumes. So overnight we almost increased volumes by 20 to 30%. So that put a lot of pressure on the logistics and supply chain, and had we not made some cleaning before, it would have been
Oh, so you already had given up of furniture and other categories.
Yeah. So around about half a year before I joined, the company started that kind of transformation. Okay. So it had come, a bit on the way. We were about to get rid of the worst categories, but still it was, our logistics center, it was, there was so much stuff in it when the pandemic hit us. But we had managed to at least get some control of the situation. And overnight, increasing what we should ship by some 20-30%, that was really challenging, of course a lot of fun, and made us kind of jump 2 to 3 years ahead of time overnight.
Yeah, the transformation was quicker. I think a lot of companies had to transform themselves quick to adapt to the new consumer. But I remember when we were talking last week, you said, don't let a good crisis go to waste. I love this sentence. Why do you say that?
So firstly, I would like to say that of course, you don't want to end up in a crisis. So that is what you're basically trying to avoid, being a leader of a company or working in a company, because a crisis is of course not good. That is important to say.
It definitely gives us some gray hair, some extra gray hair and wrinkles.
Yeah, it's terrible to be in a crisis. But what a crisis gives you the opportunity to do is to make quite rapid and more comprehensive changes than you would have otherwise have done. And I think that is kind of important to remember, that when you are in a crisis, you need and you can act swifter and more radical than you would otherwise. Acting swifter and more radical might mean that you end up in an even bigger crisis, so it's not like just do anything. But, so you need actually to have, you need to control what you're changing. You need to have some luck, I would say as well, that you have actually found the right things to change. And then you need to have a good team that can transform quickly. But
does that mean that you might have to fire some old team and hire a new team? How?
I think it might mean, but you might also be in a situation where you have quite a lot of, a very, competent team. So it's not a given that you need to make those changes. It's more about the mindset of the people working in the company. But what I think a crisis gives you the advantage to do is to make massive changes at once.
And everybody's kind of sold that you need these changes, I guess.
Yeah,
because
but
they're like, look, the way it is not working, so we have to change, and everybody.
Yeah.
It's easier for them to agree, I guess.
Yeah, I think the situation, both when I was at this food bag company, but also at Adlibris, I think everyone was quite aware that the situation was not good, and there needed to be quite a lot of changes. It was even worse at the food bag company where I was. And then we actually changed more or less everything at once. And that is not something you want to do, because you don't want to move all the foundations at once. But sometimes you have to do it. And then you need to, hold your thumbs, and you need to, really try to give support to the ones driving the change, and try to be as outspoken as you can. Which is much more difficult if you're in a listed environment. But, I was in a PE-owned company back then, and now I'm in a family-owned company. So you can be a bit more transparent with what you want to do and what you want to transform.
Is this how you lead? You're transparent with the team?
Try to be transparent, but also try to be thoughtfully transparent, because not everything is good to communicate. As a leader on any level, you need to kind of, package what you are communicating, because it is quite difficult to understand the message. And I think that is something you need to work quite hard on. Everyone wants to have a lot of information, but I think that you as the communicator need to be aware what you're sending and how that can be received. You cannot just send anything, because then it will be a chaos, I think. So lead by communicating as well. I think that is important.
I think especially if the person that is receiving this some information and they can't do anything about it, that they will just overthink it and nothing will help.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an important point, because you want to give people information that they have use of, and that makes them thrive in their work role and understand how they belong in a greater perspective, but you cannot just send everything, because then people won't understand. How should I digest? What does this mean for me? And they will spend a lot of time thinking about what did that person actually say.
So at Adlibris, you have 13 million offerings. 13 million. How is the operations? As you are the operations, how does it work? Do you have everything in your own stock? How is that dynamic for Adlibris?
So I think having 13 million SKUs is the beauty, but it's also the kind of very, very challenging.
The strength and the weakness?
Yes, definitely. Because of course it is difficult to present 13 million titles. It is impossible. So then, we need to find some kind of balance where if you're a consumer and you know what you want to have, you go into this, big search field, and then you will find it immediately, and you will find, more or less everything you could think of, you will find. But if you do not know really what you want to have, and we want to guide and inspire you, that is pretty cumbersome when we have so many titles. So
you give too much offers, then they're like, oh, I don't know, and they just don't buy anything.
Yeah, exactly. So that is, really something we're trying to work on. How will we be able to present this huge assortment in some kind of inspiring, curated way, where we use the knowledge we have around you as a customer and how you have behaved on the website, and then real time try to give you recommendations that we think you will like. This of course puts a lot of pressure on the recommendation engines and on the customer data platform and the marketing automation system, because it's so much volume to take care of.
Yeah, because product discovery is just...
Yes.
It's just easy to say, we personalize the offerings, but
yes, yeah.
You can also personalize 3 million books to one person if...
and normally an e-commerce player would have 30 to 50,000 SKUs, and that goes for more or less all the book chains online. We offer 13 million different titles. And then when it comes to the logistics, of course it is impossible for us to store 13 million titles in the warehouse.
We have all the warehouses in Europe.
Yeah. That we would be buying so much capital, and it would be the prices for the books would be immensely high. But I think the challenge is that you as a consumer expect to get the delivery just within a few days. That is not possible when you offer so many titles. So sometimes when you put your order, we will then do a backfill order to the to the company having the books in the UK or in the US, and then it will take 7 to 9 days for us to receive the book and then to send it to you. And I think that is an area where we can become much better to try to explain the beauty of being able to order on such a wide assortment, but also why you cannot get everything on a next day delivery.
But do the consumers understand that?
No, they don't, and I think it is our mission to make it easy for the consumer to understand that when you go into the website, not everything is in stock, and we can become much better at doing that, but also become much better at the post-purchase experience. When you're waiting a week, let's say that, we need to be better at communicating during that waiting period, so you understand that it is on its way.
Why?
Yes, exactly. We have been not that good in that.
And why not a marketplace then?
Sorry?
You're not a marketplace, right? Like you are, but why not go to the marketplace where they see that they're buying from someone else?
So we have been, of course, thinking about the marketplace kind of setup, but we have also seen that means that me as the kind of the contact for the consumer, I lose control of the inventory and of the shipping and the full experience. So we have made the decision that we do not want just to be a pure marketplace actor. We want to have more control of the supply chain to give you a good as an experience as possible.
Got it. And another thing that I found very curious, I wouldn't say only about Adlibris, but that's what we're talking about. But I see that a lot of that happening in the Scandinavian countries for some reason. But pure players are going to stores. When did you open 2 stores?
That was before I joined Adlibris, so I think it was in 2017.
Okay. Why stores if you have been doing e-commerce for so long?
So, going back some 2 to 3 years, my view on offline was that I was happy that we were more or less only online. But what we have seen, and where I've changed my mind in the last 2 years, is that offline really, there is more life in offline than we thought, around about 2 to 3 years ago. Then everyone thought that everything will be online. But we see that there is quite a great, resistance in the offline area, and that consumers, they both want to have the online experience, but they also want to be able to meet someone more physically, because it is difficult in an online environment to be fully inspiring and to be fully curated, which you have the opportunity to be in a physical bookstore. And it kind of gives life to what you're selling. And that's why I think some kind of blend between offline and online, both from a brand perspective, but also to become more, to give some more meat and flesh to the experience. I think that is what we've seen in the last years, that the combination and that you can really, fine-tune your brand experience by being also offline. I think that combination is more valuable than I thought a few years ago.
And have you seen a big impact with having in stores? So did you see the ROI?
So I think the stores we have, they are profitable. We actually acquired also a retail chain a year ago called Pocket Shop, which
I saw that. I went to this store yesterday.
Yeah, so, great. Which is then even a more curated store than a normal bookstore, often in airports and travel, train stations and so forth. And I think we've just started the journey, I would say, to see how we can combine offline and online. But we are convinced that the exposure in offline will also help us build brand and really make us become more human than only being online.
Interesting. And with the whole world has been suffering with high interest rates, inflation. We had a tough year. 2024 doesn't seem to be any easier. What are you planning for 2024? Do you opening more stores, or how are you managing the high cost now?
So we believe that 2024 will be a super tough year. Consumers are now hit by the increased interest rates. You see that when you read about that the interest rates are flattening out and might go down, it will take a while until that will hit the consumers'
and the wages
wallet.
Haven't adapted to the inflation that we just had, right?
Exactly. So I would say it is now that we see that the consumers have a much tougher household economics, and that we will see during the full 2024. We believe it's gonna be a tough ride in 2024. So what is then important, I think, is to really have operational control, to be able to quickly adjust if you see that suddenly we might have a positive situation. How can you then put the pedal to the metal, and where could you brake if things turn in the other direction? When it comes to investments, we are making significant investments in an automated warehouse solution. We will go live in 2025. for us being, family owned, we have a bit longer perspective on the investments, and that is an upside, that during a tough period we could actually then invest in becoming better once it turns, because things will turn. And then, so now we're investing to be able to grow in the future. Yeah, to some extent, yes. So I would say that we will take during 2024 quite a controlled approach to what we invest in, trying to look a bit beyond 2024 and see, okay, what will happen when things start turning better.
And how is Adlibris addressing the sustainability efforts? I see another trend in retail that we see a lot, especially in Europe. I think every store that I went here in Sweden has something sustainable to talk about. And you are an e-commerce player for the most part. How is the logistics? What are you doing for the sustainability efforts?
So we're working, of course, as most companies, on quite a broad array of things to really try to influence and make some kind of impact sustainability-wise. For us, the sustainability comes in two perspectives. Number one is that we know that reading is important for the society. If we make people read more, especially in the younger ages, they will have a better possibility to really, kind of realize their own potential. They will also understand the world much, much better. That we have seen in different research papers. We also know that if you're read to or read when you're young, you will learn around 50 to 70,000 Swedish words. If you're not read to or reading, you will only know 15 to 17,000 words. To understand a bit more complicated article in a paper, you need to kind of be possessing some 50,000 words. And to me and to us, that means that if you do not possess the language, you will be much easier to influence.
Your critical thinking is going to be...
Exactly.
Yeah.
You will not be able to make up your own kind of mind about things. And that's why we are really working hard to increase reading in the younger ages. We're doing a huge project together with some other publishers targeted towards 10-year-olds and schools, where we have actually made half of all the Swedish 10-year-olds, they participate in this competition, and they are reading 70% more than they would without the competition. And we also know that at the age of 10, that is kind of a turning point. Either you read more or you read less. So that is one way for us to really try to create a more sustainable society. The other one is to try to decrease our climate footprint. Books have a fairly small footprint, so you would have 4 books in 1 hamburger, which is quite amazing. So it has a small climate footprint, but anyhow we need to do whatever we can to really try together with the publishers to decrease that footprint, and then also to share what we have learned when it comes to packaging and last mile deliveries, and that is kind of what we try to do. We try to share the experience we have, and within online I think people are sharing a lot and we learn from each other. So we have the ambition to halve our climate footprint within 5 years, and we are on the way to do it, but we need to do it in partnership, especially with the ones producing our products.
Absolutely. And what do you think makes a successful CEO? And how do you embrace this?
So I think that goes for most leaders, that I think you should really try to surround yourself by people who are better than you are. And then give them the space to act, be there to support them, to challenge them, but really show them that you're trusting what they do. Allow mistakes, but don't allow the same mistake twice. And of course you need to be more successful than making mistakes, but you try to move fast That is of course easier said than done because you have constraints in everything from tech platform, organization, blah blah blah. But try to test things, may push them out to the consumers to tell you if that was a good thing or not. Don't spend too much time on the drawing table, but put things out. But really surround yourself with super good people, give them space to act. That would be my my one advice.
And how do you approach talent acquisition? It's always hard to find these people that are better than us. How do you manage that?
It is difficult, definitely. Recruitments are difficult. It's difficult to really understand if people are what you're looking for. I think what we're trying to put a lot of emphasis on is the attitude, and you can always learn, but it's much more difficult to change attitude than to change competence. So we have the advantage of being in books, which is quite purpose-driven, trying to make people read more. So we actually attract quite a lot of people who love to spread, the joy of reading. And I think that is, from this kind of, passion perspective, that gives us an advantage, that we are purpose-driven. But it is difficult to find the right talents, and I think therefore you need to nurture the talents that you have, because it's, after 6 to 12 months you might understand, okay, is this person as good as we thought? Then it's a lot about trying to retain the talent that you have and give them more opportunities to grow.
And well, you have kids?
3.
Are they reading a lot?
I read a lot. I think a lot of parents, I would love them to read more. It is challenging with kids, they're teenagers, and they are consuming all media all the time, and I would love them to consume books more. They consume that in to quite small extent.
But there is this, I was reading, well, it's been a few months, but how TikTok is making the reading grow, because they talk a lot about books. Do you see that?
I see that with my daughter. She's 12, and she's picking up on the TikTok trends, when it comes to books, but when it comes to anything, makeup or whatever. So she's really influenced by that TikTok trend. I think my older ones, they are boys, and they are reading much less. And it is a challenge because they are approached by so much information all the time, and it's so much about quickly digesting things and then acting upon it. And we are trying to find, how could books fit into their kind of behavior, and it is challenging.
It is very challenging. And what book would you recommend to other commerce leaders?
So I read a lot. I read very few management books because I kind of, try to find the inspiration elsewhere when it comes to reading. So I would rather recommend to use the reading to open up your own universe towards other worlds. I think that is, to me, is beautiful, and it is so inspiring. I love Kim Thuy, which is a Canadian Vietnamese author, and I think from understanding another culture and how a person can really dwell in a new environment and all the challenges that comes with that, I think that is a beautiful book, or beautiful books to read. I would strongly recommend them.
Amazing. I have been reading some books from, they're not management, they're the story of a few leaders, like the Panera Bread CEO, just, I don't know, he sold the company for 7 billion, etc. So I find those stories inspiring, but it's not like 3 lessons for better management and etc. So that's my recommendation. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jonas. It's been a pleasure learning about Adlibris and your passion for books and how you want to manage making a better society through it. So it's very inspiring to talk to you, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for being here.
While I talked to Jonas the few times we met, I learned so much about leadership, and I love how honest he is on his views. He says he's driven by consumer sales, but I truly think he's driven by transforming businesses. There's nothing like a good challenge for a good leader. Next week, I'll be in Germany for EuroSees, one of the best events for discovery of new retail technologies. The event happens from the 27th to the 29th of February, and on the 27th, we'll find out the winners of the Red Awards 2024. If you're also there, please come say hi, and if you have any ideas or suggestions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or send us an email to ideas@offbounds.tv. Next week, we will have on the show another Swedish leader, Carola Lundell, who will bring us the true case study of loyalty and community building in retail. I hope you enjoy it. See you next Tuesday.